What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel, and as always, thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It's your boy Matty B, and we are still kind of attending the Under the Weather National after just running ourselves into the ground at Loretta Lynn's. But we ain't too under the weather to talk about the absolute banger that was round 9 of Pro Motocross at Ironman Raceway. Awesome day of racing in the 250 class. It was all double D's, Deegan domination, with the only challenge coming from Wasabi Joe. And then in the 450 class, things got crazy. We saw an unprecedented one-lap penalty for Jett Lawrence, a first-time winner, and a crazy turn of events with Chase Sexton, including a big crash and possibly a bike problem. And hell, we even had WMX on TV. Hell of a show all day long, and before I get into all that, I gotta give a huge thank you to my channel sponsors. Thank you to Sirius Studio and ASV Inventions. I've got links and discount codes in my description, and you guys remember, if you're supporting them, you're supporting me. And as always, appreciate you guys tuning in regardless. Let's get into it. First of all, some thoughts on the track. As we all know, Ironman is going to be the host of the 2025 Motocross of Nations this October, which is going to be sick. I'm hoping I can be in attendance. It's going to be badass. But since they are having this event, and I'm sure they're expecting way more spectators, they had to make some track modifications, and I've already seen a lot of complaints online about them. With the big one being the elimination of Godzilla, the huge jump at the top of the hill, and then the big tabletop on the way back down. And maybe this is just me as a rider talking and somebody who's tired of getting hurt and scared of getting hurt, but I don't really think it was that bad of a change, to be honest with you guys. I mean, I actually thought it was better for racing this new way. You know, you could either double single to the inside or triple up and go to the berm. So at least it made it for multiple lines, because the way it was before, you would pretty much just jump all the way up to the top, land on the flat, and rupture a disc on a good day. Then it was just a one-lined 180, and then the tabletop back down the hill. It was sick. I do think that one is going to be missed by the riders and especially the fans. And obviously, the optics of the huge jumps, it's way more fun to watch. But from a racer's standpoint, I don't really know if it's all that bad of a change. But they also made the track a little bit shorter, and I even heard multiple times they cited the reason for that being that they were going to need more room for crowd space at the Motocross of Nations. But all track changes aside, that place was gnarls Barkley today. Pretty soft on top with the addition of some mulch and sawdust, and then right underneath, super slick and icy base with some edges and some potholes. So just an incredibly tricky surface, had to be super hard to read. And being that the start was plowed about 6 or 9 feet deep, scoop tires were in the contract, so that had to make it about as sketchy as kindergarten artwork trying to skate around out there on a scoop. And I don't know about you guys, maybe this is just me, but I kind of wish some of the tracks on the circuit would just leave their soil as is, Maybe Ironman's a little bit more hard pack. I say we just let it be a hard pack race rather than kind of mixing dirt, mulch, and sand and all that stuff in, and kind of making every track a pretty similar surface. I think it would be cool if each track kind of had their own unique surface, and let some of them be hard, let some of them be soft, but I also understand why they do it. You can mix that stuff in and holds moisture a lot better, and it just makes it a lot easier in some other ways. So when it comes to track conditions, you're never going to please everybody, but yeah, those are just my thoughts. Now we'll jump into the results. Today we'll start with the 450 class because, man, that's where all the action was. And with the win, a first-time winner, a 2-2 for Hunter. And maybe that wasn't the way he wanted to win it. Jett had the penalty and the bad start, and then Chase crashed out of the second moto. But if it's me, I'm sitting back and I'm looking at the bank account and I'm feeling just fine. Names in the record books now. And really, it's been a long time coming. I mean, Hunter was pretty close several times last year. He was close at High Point this year, so he deserves it. You got to be in it to win it. And yeah, sometimes crazy stuff happens. That's why you race. No choice. And it was kind of crazy for him to win on a day like this where really I feel like he and Jett's bike actually looked pretty sketchy, super twitchy, but he managed to hang on and did what he needed to do, and he got the dub. And then continuing with the craziness, in second place, an improbable 3-4 for second overall for RJ Hampshire. And this dude has been the absolute feel-good revelation national of the entire summer. He's been way better than I anticipated. I feel like probably way better than everybody anticipated. He's been way more solid than you could ever think of RJ ever being in his entire life. And he just keeps on getting better and better. I mean, clearly the dude doesn't need any bones in his wrist. I heard he's got another surgery to get the rest of them removed because it's going so well right now. And bravo, RJ Hampshire. This has been awesome. And I'll be curious to see if this 450 prowess translates into Supercross, because I feel like 450 Supercross is kind of a different animal, but so far, RJ's checking all the boxes. Then a third for Eli Tomac, a 6'3", and rumor had it he was under the weather today, and I know how you feel, ET. I was just laying in bed watching the National today, and I didn't really feel all that hot. But definitely a bit weird to see ET get a couple of hole shots and then kind of go backwards, so him being under the weather kind of makes sense. And speaking of Tomac, Team USA for Motocross of Nations was named today, and it's going to be Eli Tomac, Chase Sexton, and Hayden Deegan. And I don't know about you guys, but I am hyped for that. I feel like it's been several years since we've actually sent our best team. There's always something that stops us from doing it, but there's definitely not a better team on paper, and yeah, I'll be surprised if they don't kick ass. Quiet fourth for Justin Cooper with a 4.5 as he continues to lead the SMX World Championship playoff points, surely going to head into Charlotte as the number one seed. And then a fifth overall. I actually thought we saw a few flashes of brilliance, or maybe not brilliance, but flashes of at least being a little better from Jorge Prado in the 5 spot. He was better in qualifying. First moto seemed like he ran up there for a lot longer. I think second moto, the tongue might have gotten the spokes, got a little tired, but Ironman's brutal. It gets humid, it's super hot, and it's gnarly. So I'm just stoked to see some positives out of Jorge Prado because I know how good he is. I've been watching him at MXGP, and I was so excited to see him insert himself up at the top of the field. And it just kind of hasn't gone that way. And even crazier, some news coming out of Ironman this morning is that Jorge is actually talking to KTM about a possible return. Now, don't ask me how all that's going to work. He's here on a 3-year deal with Kawasaki, so he'd have to get out of that. And I'm no lawyer, so I'm just going to have to leave it at that. But those are some crazy rumors. That would be wild to see Jorge get back on a comfy chassis, stay in the United States, and get back on his familiar bike. Then in the 6th spot, here comes some controversy. Jett Lawrence with a 17-1 after being docked one whole lap in the first moto. And when you first hear what they did, that they docked him a lap for hitting the gate, it so sounds like overkill. Even I myself was kind of like, wow, are you guys serious? But then I looked into the rule book myself. I heard their explanation on TV, and it is pretty black and white in the rule book. If you foul the gate is what they say, it's an automatic 1 lap penalty. It's not at anybody's discretion or anything like that. And I saw some people even talking about, oh, Sexton hit the gate in Supercross and nothing happened to him. And here's the difference. Sexton hit the gate, but he didn't knock it forward. He backed up and started way behind everybody and got back going. And what they said on TV with Jett is that he actually knocked the gate forward, and instead of backing up and waiting and going, he actually just took off after the gate dropped. So I think that was the difference there between no penalty or a penalty. Either way, it's harsh and it's gnarly, but at the end of the day, at least they kind of made for a little bit more of an exciting overall for the day. And really, it takes a pretty insurmountable, insane penalty to even stop Jett Lawrence. So, Jett, I appreciate it. If you want to hit the gate some more, dude, be my guest. But yeah, Moto 2 came back with a vengeance, absolutely smoked everybody, even though the bike didn't look that great. And even Moto 1, he and Sexton's charge to the field was pretty sick. And yeah, he's still Jett Lawrence, just a penalized Jett. A 7.8 for 7th overall in his return to pro motocross for Dylan Ferrandis, and really, in my opinion, that's an awesome day. After being off since Supercross, the entire field has their outdoor base, they've been racing all summer, to just jump right in and end up right there, not sure how much more you could ask for. Quiet 8th for Malcolm Stewart. I would say a quiet 9th for Justin Barcia, but we know how Bam Bam rides, there's no way that ride was quiet. And then in the 10th spot, he went down in flames, a 1 and a 40 for Chase Sexton. What a bummer. Even after the crash in Moto 2, I still thought he was on his way to the front and he was for sure going to secure that overall win. But man, just a mistake-filled day. A crash in Moto 1, still gets the win in an insane ride. And then Moto 2, bad start, a crash, making his way back through, and then just a hellacious crash right after he gets by Hunter for the overall. And they were kind of speculating on TV. I've already seen a lot of people talking about it. Just one man's opinion. I think maybe either a rock could have messed up the disc or the rotor or something, or maybe even, he was pushing super hard. He kept looking forward to seeing where the other guys were. Maybe he charged in there just a little bit too hard and didn't release the front brake in time and locked the front wheel up in the air. I don't know. I feel like Chase, he's a good rider, so chances of that might be slim, but when you're pushing it that hard, you never know. But a bummer for him for sure. He was looking at the overall, he was looking at clawing his way back in Super Motocross points, and just like that, he's kind of erased all the gains. And then just outside the top 10, we got 11 through 14 in a huge Super Motocross World Championship points battle. They're all trying to make the top 20. 11th was Shock, then Gio, Kulas, and Harrison, and then there's one more guy in that fight, Benoit Paturel, but he only managed an 18th, and I think he's about to be on the outside looking in. Then down to 19th, super quiet, almost didn't even realize he was racing, but it was cool to see Shane McElrath back in the mix. And then down in 21st, a 19:41 for the Australian MX1 champion Kyle Webster. He was good in qualifying. He was good when he showed up last year. And maybe I'm just not remembering correctly, but I swore he was running up front in some of the motos. But at the end of the day, not quite there in the results column. But we can work with speed, no choice. And then real quick to touch on the WMX, super cool that they got on TV again. They deserve it. Lala Turner is an absolute badass, along with Charlie Cannon. And then you got Stallings, Nielsen, Jarvis, Jamie Astudillo, and all the current girls. But what I'm really excited about is in about 6, 7, maybe even 8 years, WMX is going to be an absolute spectacle. I mean, when you get Mayla Herrick, Hannah Jameson, Racing Kyler, Yumena Burning, and whatever little girl becomes a Lady Ripper between now and then, it's going to be unreal. Now we'll jump into the 250 results, and with the win, a 1-1 sweep for Hayden Deegan, back on top after getting defeated by Wasabi Joe at Washougal. You know that couldn't have sat well with the guy. And then there was the drama over the break with the whole, oh, is he racing the 450? Fake news, this and that. The dude put it all behind him, absolutely smoked everybody. And even the first moto, I kind of thought that Joe had him covered. Wasn't really putting much of a dent in the gap, but Deegan's got that dog in him. Late race, he just ran him down, put it to him, and never looked back. Super hyped that he's going to be on the Motocross of Nations team. I don't really think USA can go wrong with that because the MX2 guy has got to be one of the most important parts of the team because you can put a lot of spots between yourself and the next best 250 guy if you've got somebody like Deegan on the team. So super excited about that. Then in the 2 spot, Wasabi Joe. Awesome ride, just not quite enough to get it done against the Deegs. And I've been so impressed with Joe all season. I really wasn't coming in expecting much out of him. I'd actually kind of written him off. I think I might have predicted him to get like 8th or something like that. But he has been pretty much the best Joe Shimoda he could be almost every weekend. And he has been head and shoulders, head over heels, the second best guy, not even close. And yeah, he's putting himself in a super good position for whenever Deegan vacates the class. And then a third, Tom Vial. Good to see him back in action and back on the box. You hardly really saw him on TV or anything like that. And really, the entire 250 class today, there wasn't a whole lot going on besides a little bit of action up front between Joe and Deegan. But a 3-3 for Vial, and then 4th overall with a 4-6 for Garrett Marchbanks. Very surprised that he actually lost a couple spots late in Moto 2, but still, an awesome season for Garrett. Total revelation despite being 6'12 and 200 pounds. And on top of all that, he's only 2 rounds away from securing a permanent number by being top 10 in the combined Supercross and Motocross points for 250 and 450. And rumor has it, he's going to be possibly picking number 39 as a tribute to Aiden Zing. How freaking cool would that be? Super stoked for my guy Drew Adams, top 5 with an 8.5. Ended up getting Marchbanks on the last lap of Moto 2. And this is probably helpful that it's a track that Drew's been to a couple times. I think he's done a combine here, and he raced the National here last year. So maybe this is a sign of things to come for Drew whenever we get to 2026. And he's been to these tracks once or twice. 6th for Mikkel Harup, a 5 and a 9. And he's another one, man. It's been an awesome season. 5th in points. He's had way more good weekends than bad. And now we've even got some rumors swirling around that Harup's going to be staying around next year with the Triumph team and possibly even racing a 450. Stay tuned. Max Handbrake Voland, solid, steady Eddie for a 7th overall, and then 8th, Levi Kitchen. Strange season for Levi, a 14-4 on the day, and that's kind of synonymous with how the rest of the season's gone. One weekend he's good, the next weekend he kind of isn't, but we all know how good Levi is. This whole sport, it's kind of ebbs and flows with whether you're feeling it or not, and it hasn't been the best summer for him, but all it takes is a good offseason, and he can be your winner at Anaheim 1 next January. Not quite as good as Washougal, but still good nonetheless. A P9 overall for Austin Faulkner. And I'm stoked for this dude. He's been building little by little. Millville was good. Washougal was way better. And then Ironman wasn't bad either. So the dude's just stacking blocks, trying to get that base that he's never had. And then rounding out the top 10, fastest qualifier, Seth Hamaker. Not really sure what happened in the motos, but to not really have a great day and still be in the top 10. And most importantly, hopefully still be healthy. Don't think you can be too upset about that. Then we'll jump down to 13th, Parker Ross. For sure should have been in the top 10 overall, but he had some issues late in Moto 1, so he ended up with a 19.7. And then back to 14th, shout out to Two Jews, he was back. And then all the way back to 20th overall with a 34.16 is Cade Johnson, an amateur rider that just raced Loretta Lynn's last week. And this is a kid, he hasn't had like this crazy amateur career. He's not like this can't miss next big thing or anything like that. but I think the kid is going to be able to transition nicely into being a pro. He seems to be in shape, he seems to shine when the track's gnarly, and those two things could not be any more paramount in pro motocross. I think he had an issue in the first moto and a DNF, so maybe he was a little fresher for Moto 2, I don't know, but to jump right in and get a P16, super solid. And then 22nd overall with an 18 and a 27. I didn't even know this guy was still racing, but Frenchman Matisse Boromé, past European champion, he qualified top 20, 18th in the first moto, and I know he was in the points for the most of the second moto, but some late moto fade. The Frenchmen probably don't know about that Ironman humidity, and he went back to 27th. And then speaking of 27th, the Australian MX2 champion Brodie Connolly was in the States for Ironman, and just like Webster, I swore he was running further up front. He had a decent qualifying time, but the results just aren't showing it. And then last but unfortunately not least, we had a few returns that did not go to plan. 28th overall was Daxton Bennick for Star Yamaha, which don't get me wrong, is not good at all, but compared to the other two returns, that was actually a pretty good day. Jett Reynolds and Pierce Brown both went out and didn't even get to finish the day. I saw on Twitter that apparently Jett Reynolds has a fracture or a crack to the leg, so bummed. But Jett Reynolds back on the sidelines, and then Pierce Brown, he was down early and then he was down again. I don't really even know how he did it, but the dude was down and out with no visor up at the top of Godzilla. And that's not what you want to see. I mean, we've been dying to see these guys back in action all year, and now they're just doming themselves again. But sometimes you'll have that on those bigger jobs, and that's all I got for you guys from Ironman today. And as always, let me know in the comments if you agree with my takes, if you disagree, if you think I'm a cooked unit. And as always, if you want to complain about how I talk, there's always a spot for that. But like I said, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate y'all, and I'll catch you next time.